Someone's got to fund the bit.
It was supposed to be the Shadow Treasurer's big day, when he'd seek to prove his credentials to manage the economy.
When you believe in what you're saying, it's easy to give these speeches.
Star billing for Joe Hockey at the National Press Club.
Here we go.
Opposition leader Tony Abbott had given it a very big build-up last week after the government brought down its budget.
Next Wednesday, at the National Press Club, the Shadow Treasurer will announce further measures to reduce spending and to increase productivity, including a detailed response to the new spending and new savings proposals in the budget.
This document I am releasing today.
But when it came, it amounted to a very big letdown. Apparently, the detail would come after the speech from another frontbencher.
Today, my colleague Andrew Robb, the Shadow Minister for Finance, is releasing a detailed statement outlining the savings measures the Coalition is taking so far to get the budget back to surplus as quickly as possible. The combined 4-year recurrent and capital savings amount to $46.7 billion.
So let's make this very clear. Joe Hockey would not be producing any figures. The media would have no costing documents as he presented his speech, which gave a broad outline of policy goals. They wouldn't even have copies of the speech itself. At a forum where media scrutiny and questioning of politicians is par for the course.
Why haven't you, as Tony Abbott promised you would last week, outlined the cuts that you're proposing to make?
Tony Abbott actually said last week, just had a look at this, that you would be announcing a detailed response to the new spending and new savings proposals in the budget. Why didn't you do that?
I must say I think it's pretty poor form to say that you've got $47 billion in savings and not show us them before we ask questions.
Okay. I'm sorry if you think it's poor form, that you haven't got a list of all the savings at this exact moment. But I tell you what, before you walk out the door, you'll have them.
Is this the sort of thing that you most criticise in the Rudd government, sort of blatant media manipulation and reverse spin?
No.
Whether it was a cynical attempt to manipulate the media or sheer stupidity and disorganisation, the end result is the same. Joe Hockey's day to shine had turned into something else altogether. Not helped either by questions like this, in the wake of his leader's statement to this program on Monday, that what Tony Abbott says in the heat of the moment can't always be believed as a commitment.
Can you guarantee that interest rates will not rise under the Coalition? And could I have that answer in writing so I know it's the gospel truth?
Interest rates will always be lower under the Coalition because we are prepared to run surplus budgets.
From now on, opposition frontbenchers will be exposed to repeated questions like this on truthfulness, courtesy of Tony Abbott's confession. Outside the press club, things weren't improving either.
Ask any question you want.
We just got it. Well, you just put a bowl of soup in our lap after you've spoken, after you've taken questions.
Yeah, well, I want you to focus on the rest of the policy and not just savings.
So you don't want us to focus on the savings and
everything.
Your leader was in the House of Representatives. He said Joe Hockey is going to release the details.
There it is.
He's misled the Parliament. It's laughable, isn't it?
It's all there.
Back inside, finance spokesman Andrew Robb was left to pick up the pieces, belatedly handing out costings he'd expand on at a news conference later. He offered this defence of Joe Hockey's approach today.
Joe felt that, you know, if he put a document out with all the numbers, that was the end of the rest of his speech. No one, and we'd be hearing in a week or even tomorrow, there's no vision. You know, there's no framework.
Joe Hockey wanted to talk the big picture and long-term reform aimed at improving productivity and market efficiencies, such as...
Accordingly, I am announcing today that on election the Coalition will undertake a comprehensive and independent review of the Trade Practices Act from 1974, including all aspects of competition arrangements in Australia.
As expected, he reaffirmed the Coalition would scrap Labor's mining tax. But again, it was left to Andrew Robb to do the explaining on whether it was fair to include this as a $16 billion budget saving.
How can you, by abandoning a tax that doesn't exist, it might not even exist in this coming financial year, claim that to be a saving? It doesn't affect the bottom line.
It does. If the Rudd government, again, in answer to your earlier... No, I'm just saying, if people vote the Rudd government in, all that money will be spent, right? It is, again, we are comparing what money will be spent if the Rudd government is elected to office in the next 4 years and what money will be spent by the coalition.
The $46.7 billion of savings identified in today's costings include, to name a few, an end to the digital education revolution, reduced funding for the Green Car Innovation Fund and abolishing e-health, that's patients' individual electronic health records.
The irony of the government's allocation in the budget is they've funded the first 2 years, but there's a great damn hole for the next 2 years.
It was a move swiftly condemned by leading health experts.
If you're going to talk productivity and better infrastructure, you cannot, Joe, ignore the investment in health information technology, and therefore your decision, knee-jerk in my view, to remove this $467 million is plain dumb.
All up, this was not one of the opposition's better days. And Joe Hockey may well have left himself vulnerable to more questions about whether he's up to the job.